Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Fired Up, the Art Alliance for Contemporary Education. If you're joining us now, please mute yourself upon entry as we have started the program. I first want to talk about the International Year of Glass. It has been designated by the United Nations that it is the International Year of Glass to celebrate the unique aspects of our medium. And if you go to the AACG website, which Howard Cohen will put in the chat, you'll be able to keep tabs on all of the activities and exhibitions going on all around the world and see what's happening in your region. Please also check out our membership tab on the website so that you can find out about the benefits of becoming a member and spread the word about this program. It is free and open to the public on the third Tuesday of each month. Okay, I am very excited to present a very special program for you today. It's a tour of the Dorothy and George Saxe Collection of Contemporary Glass. Dorothy and her late husband George began collecting art in the 1970s with a particular focus on glass art. And although some of their collection now resides in the DeYoung Museum, there's still an incredible array of work here at her apartment in San Francisco, where we're going to give you a tour today. So without further ado, I would like to welcome and introduce the incredible and always inspiring Dorothy Saxe.
Well, thank you. Hi. Well, welcome to my San Francisco home. I'm very glad that to be with all of you today. Anyway, you're in the lobby of the entry to the apartment. There are 3 apartments on the floor. We have 2 of them. One was bought strictly as a place to show the glass. And I want to talk to you about some of the pieces here. They're very important. In front of you is a table by Howard Benke, which was commissioned. We were visiting him in his studio in Providence at one time, and he had these 2 pyramid-shaped things on the floor and covered with dust. And George says, well, what are you going to do with them? He said, I don't know. They've been here for ages. George says, well, why don't you make us a table for our entry hall and use those for the base and so forth. And this is the result. It's a cast bronze piece for the top and the dregs that we found on the floor. This is a Flora Mason, Joey Kirkpatrick, that we've been friends with and admirers of for many, many years. A Dan Daly called Rope Dancer. Donna Zemechnikova from Prague. And this is very special. This was a commission. We commissioned Thurman to make this piece here. And he personalized it in many ways. He asked George where he was born, and that's his vision of central Pennsylvania. When he was a student in high school, his favorite artist was Cezanne. He asked us what our most important dates were, and in that top there were the dates we were married and the kids were born. We started collecting. What was so interesting about this is that because most of the things you will see today will be going to the DeYoung Museum, and this will be going to, and it's very unlikely that we're going to have a wall space that will accommodate this exact configuration. So he's made it so that he can move the panels and make it into one solid wall, just move them all down. And so it was very deliberately done that way. And then follow me. We commissioned Howard to make this bench. This is by, what's his name? I forgot his name.
Oh, Janusz.
Yeah, thank you very Janusz. Come on in. I'm going to block on a lot of names. You have to forgive me. I'm pretty old. No. Been a sculptor for many, many years. Didn't always work in glass, but she did a series in glass. one of the things you will find is that we have work by artists who don't normally incorporate glass with their work, but we are very attracted to it, and we have several pieces that follow that category. I'm sure you see a lot of familiar pieces here by artists whose work you know. So I'm going to talk about things that have particular interest, maybe individual objects. Not going to talk about everything, but some things come with a story. Now, on this wall here, we have several pieces that illustrate the point I was making about artists that don't usually use glass. This is by a New York artist, Linda Benglis. That up there, where I'm pointing, is by Picasso, and it's signed by Picasso. It's a collaboration between Picasso and Edigio Costantini, who worked with well-known sculptors who made pieces in glass. They didn't normally, but they were asked to make pieces, and that actually is signed by Picasso. That's an artist from Paris, Mona Hatoum. And then I'm sure you see a lot of, well, some of you may not be familiar with Tom Patty's work because I don't see it in many collections, but these two shelves are works by Tom Patty, who started working in the late 70s. Well, I'm sure you recognize, the others are all pretty recognizable, I think. So we'll move over here to the portraits. Narcissus Qualiata, who used to live in Oakland and now in Mexico. Actually, he works internationally now and does huge installations, domes inside cathedrals and so forth. Anyway, he'd been wanting to do our portraits for a long time, and we resisted. And finally, we remodeled the apartment, and we had this wall. So he took 400 photographs of us and picked these two poses, and then made a big, they call it a cartoon, and it's all bullseye glass. And when I saw the original piece being made, he had my hair very brassy blonde, which I didn't like. So I suggested he contact Narcissus and tone it down a little. So Bullseye send back some toned down blonde. And this is a piece by Bertil Verleen that may not be familiar. It's a series he did that a lot of people may not know.
And what is the series called? Do you remember?
I think maybe Cityscapes or something. Mm-hmm. I could look it up if you need to. I have time, but I don't know offhand. Landscapes, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong, but it's a good name for it anyway. This is very special. This is to make a piece for us. For 2 years, and he said never again. It was very difficult for him to make. And inside the male torso is a female torso, the blue female torso. And inside the blue torso, female torso, is something else that my husband could never quite see. It's kind of, you have to kind of wiggle around to see it. And it annoyed Clifford so much that he presented this with us one day. The Venus de Mayo there is what's inside the female torso. So the three of them. And so he said, now don't bother me again. That's what you're going to see inside. Okay. This is by Czech artist Ivan Marish, who makes these. I think he can only make about 10 pieces a year. They're very difficult. He's a real perfectionist too. Be a tiny little bubble, and they'll throw away 2 months' work out the window. Anyway, we were lucky to get that. That's when he showed up sofa for the first time. And he would only sell, he had about 5 pieces, he would only sell them to collectors who promised that they would ultimately go to a museum, and that's who bought them. So let's go around here. That's Brian Hurst from Australia. And it's a very fascinating that he's made a 2-dimensional and a 3-dimensional piece that obviously complement each other. We had a piece by Michael Pavlik that went to the Toledo Museum, and we missed it very, very much. And we were very lucky to find this somewhere from the same series, and we were able to replace. It's the only piece that we were able to replace, as it were, from the things that we donated. This is very special, Nicholas Africano. We're big admirers. We've had that for a very long time. And Lino and Dan Daly and Lubinsky. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, so when we moved to this building in 1979, we were not collecting glass, but we started in 1980 and put it all in this little 1,000 square foot apartment. And after we were totally comfortable there, we just used it occasionally, a pied-à-terre. And the collection outgrew the 1-bedroom. So we had to buy a 2-bedroom, which is what you've just been through, and which accommodated the collection very nicely for several years. And then the collection outgrew this apartment. And so it so happened the apartment next door, which was the same layout as the one we had originally, became available. So we bought it and not through it, and acquired it just as a place to display glass. So you're now about to walk into the bedroom of the apartment that we started with. We're big fans of Bert Thiel's. We've had a lot of things from him from the early 80s. And of course, the Levinskys, called Open Door. And then here we made our own Chihuly installation on this wall at various times that were required. I think this was our first one, probably. No, the black one was. I don't even know where the black one is. Let me see where it is. Oh, okay. Was that dining room table? That was the first Chihuly we ever bought in 1981. Too late. Anyway, these are just from different series of his. Some Venetians and baskets and this is called 7.1, and we mission that we made with Dick Marquis. We asked that it be 7 feet 1 inch tall for obvious reasons. These represent 14 or 15 pieces. And what Dick did is, in an inimitable way, he blew 14 separate bell jars, and in each separate piece are some of our broken elements. It's very clever. Had included a lot of things that were from his trash pile. Like, for instance, this was a leg of a Chartier from various little veins, and very, very scholarly. He put in the initials of every piece. NM is for Nancy Me, DC, and always an M for him, for Marquis. And if you, I don't know, can these supports, dice are keeping up the shelves. Anyway, we were very happy. It's the old thing, when you get lemons, you make lemonade, right? Okay, so this is our homage to Dick, to the earthquake, and to ingenuity. A lot of people may not know Mari Massaro's work. That's an Anne Wolf, Amber Cowan. I love this piece. You can either hang it vertically or horizontally. And we had this wall, and it was perfect. So he said, if you'd like to come down to Southern Illinois, I kept some pieces. Well, we made a special trip there in the middle of winter, and we were amazed. He had obviously kept the best pieces for himself. And so we were able to replace all the pieces we lost in the same series 10 times better than what we lost. So that was really very fortunate. And while we were there, we picked up a couple of extra pieces, of course, but big fans of Joel's too. Okay, well, you may as well just see an all glass bathroom. Walls, floor, ceiling, sink, everything glass. And we do let people use it. The toilet is not glass. Anyway, here, this was the commission. This is San Francisco. Some of the icons are very recognizable that we commissioned Jenny to make very happily. This is another little, I think this is our first Clifford Rainey that was an homage to his father. It's called The Engineer. This is by a French artist whose name I didn't have on my cheat sheet. I didn't have time to do that. And this one, it fools people. I ask people who they think it is. Very few people know what it is. Do you have any idea who did that?
I thought it might be Toots.
It is. Well, then you win because people do. This was, I like to say this is before she became anal. And it's very controlled, but this is different. We bought this very early on. Okay. And Nancy Nee from Seattle, like her work a lot too.
Okay.
So this is Joyce Scott. I've loved her work for many, many years. I have some of her neck pieces. In fact, I thought about it. I would have worn one, but I didn't. Anyway, and then this is a woman from Seattle, Martita Dingus, who I think is doing very interesting work. We got that at in the shop at in Tacoma Museum of Glass. Ned had never heard of her, but we just loved these, and she's doing some really great work now. So this is where a lot of some of the larger pieces of the collection reside. That's an early Sidney Cash. A lot of people may not know his work. Dan Daly, Mark Pizer, and an early, why am I blocking on his name? Dan Clayman, I'm sorry. It pays to be old. You have an excuse when you forget things. No, it doesn't pay to be old. So which way do you want to go?
Let's see. Let's go to the left here.
Okay. This is one of my favorite pieces by Bertil. It's called A Map. And it's the one piece I'd like to know more about what was behind it. I'm sure there was a lot of significance, but here's the why. Is that why? Is it a fork in the road? What? Supposedly this was taken from an aerial photograph of some city, and it's very haunting, and I love it. And the verso, I'm not saying it's a backside because it's interesting. Is I think I like it too.
Very interesting from the back.
Yeah. It's one of the few pieces we have displayed so you can see the front and back, or both sides, I should say. And Klaus Moyer. Actually, that's by Dick Marquis, and it's kind of an homage to Klaus.
Okay.
Here's one of my favorite pieces. I think I would have bought it for Menlo Park if I hadn't opened it up, because we happen to like the things made out of wood, cabinets and furniture and stuff. But it's Kiki Cribs Inside. It was a collaboration with a furniture maker or cabinet maker out of the East. Okay, I think we'll go into Bill territory now.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, everybody, eat your hearts out. We've got this $400, Bill Morris. And then the next year, that was already $500. So the rest is history, of course. But we've been big supporters and fans of Bill from the beginning. He used to live out here in Carmel. Anyway. We have some wonderful pieces of his, including some hanging artifacts and a couple of others that are at the young right now. I miss them. They're really quite wonderful. Come out and see them. This is his kind of a kind of a sea thing. Things that would be found in the ocean. His father was a physician, and he was complaining to Bill that the bones were not accurate. They weren't authentic. But it's a wonderful piece.
Okay.
We'll go, and then we'll come back to the Mildred Howard.
Sure.
Okay. I'm sure you recognize Open Abright, but we knew him from the time he was a little a young boy, because his parents were both ceramic artists, and they mended art ceramics. And after the earthquake, we took, I think, about 14 pieces. Luckily, they could be mended. And so we knew him when he was a kid, and we saw drawings of his on his parents' wall. And he was a good artist even as a kid. Then he went to the California College of the Arts, where George was on the board, and so we saw him frequently there. So we kept up with him, and we couldn't go to his graduate show, but he had a little studio in San Francisco that we went to visit him, and he had these two pieces on view, and kind of two sides to his personality. I don't know, but anyway, we never ever bought student work or someone who already was an established artist. But we thought they were so terrific, and that he had a future, and that they would stand up in our collection. They would, be diminished just by being next to all the stars. So we bought them, and sure enough, within a year, he had a show, I think, at a Louisville gallery, and then the next year he had a show in Chicago, and the following year, and after that, there was a waiting list for his work, and he obviously is a very, very gifted artist, and that's a more recent one of his from his series. Okay. This is a wonderful piece by a local sculptor named Mildred Howard, who has quite a reputation for herself. It's all made out of little vials. I guess from a laboratory or something. But she's made real big structures too. There's a huge house type thing at the Tacoma Museum of Glass that you can walk in, and it just depends on the size of the bottles that she uses. Actually, the San Jose Museum of Art is having its annual gala next month, and she's being honored as the artist. I'm going to call attention, which I'm very happy for. She deserves it. Here's a business in southern France, which is quite wonderful. I think it's a Mate Negriano. And then coming home, we stopped at Sofa. It was on our way home from the trip. We found this chair by Danny Lane. So George used to sit there and pretend he was a gallery director. Early Howard. Kind of a transitional piece between the small ones and then the large ones. I mean, these are intermittent sizes. Another Ann Wolf. And I commissioned this. It's what's his name?
Norid.
Yeah, thank you, Norid. Thank you, Norid Viviano, and it's the financial district of San Francisco. Everybody knows because there's the TA building. Yeah. And that's an early Burchille when his assistant accidentally made black glass, but because of the formula change, and Burchille liked it so much, as you know, he continued working in black glass, and very dramatic. This is a wonderful head of his. I don't know if you're at the right angle or not. Can you?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
see.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We've had that out there since we got the apartment. I don't know what happened. Her name was Linda Ross. She was from the East. And it just been out there. And it gets comments. I have no idea if she's still working in glass or not, because we've had it probably over 30 years. Obviously. Virtue boat. When you stand at a certain spot in the living in this room, the thing is, it looks like it's floating in the water because of the distance. We're up too close to get that effect, but it's very impressive when it looks like it's in the water. Billy Morris made that, but actually Tom Buechner designed it. They collaborated. It was based on a show based on Wagner's Ring Cycle. That was at the Heller Gallery many years ago. It was a very dramatic installation. Everything was from Tom had designed everything. He was a real Wagner fan, and it was very dramatic. They had music going and one thing another. This is called Valhalla Burns. What's her name?
Christina Bothwell.
Thank you very much, Christina Bothwell. And it's very haunting with it. There's always there's a lovely story connected with it that she tells. And her work is very personal, very sweet.
Oh, Janus.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yanush.
Yeah.
That was the first one we bought, maybe the second one. And this, it's called In Play. And George used to think that he was very playful. I used to think he was being attacked. I can't tell by his expression on his face. But Mary Van Klein. That piece is by James LeBold. When Cass was in Corning, he won the Emerging Artist Award. So I got it. I felt only fair that we got it. And I like it. It's very well done. Clifford. Done this for pretty much, huh? Should we go the other? How's our time?
We're fine.
Should we go to the other?
Yeah.
Okay. Richard Ritter. I call this my paperweight on steroids. Well, if he still shows or not. And Fujita. No collection was complete without a Fujita back in the 80s. We're going to finish up the apartment here now.
Okay.
This is obviously a John Kuhn. We knew John when he was just struggling. In fact, we have one in the kitchen. It doesn't look at all like this. And George said it gets a lot of attention. People at night with the artificial light, there are just all kinds of, well, there's some prisms on the ceiling already, but it just floods the ceiling. And George said, John, I don't want you ever to make that shape again. And by golly, I don't think he has. I see a lot of his work, and I don't think I've ever seen this shape. So it looks like he was paying attention and being respectful. So I thank him for that. Okay. I'm taking it to the place where we lived. Oh my. That is a very important piece.
Christopher Wilmar.
Thank you, whoever. Yep, you got it. Thank you.
Susie.
No, at any time. Please, anybody fill in. Feel free. Be appreciative. So wherever there's a surface, you'll find glass. That was our earliest Janusz. This is a very important doorway. George was sitting in a chair ready to watch the television game. The '89 earthquake hit. So like all good San Franciscans, he ran right to the door to protect himself because there wasn't a dining room table to go under. And he protected himself in this piece. So the Robin Grave is there because George thought to save both of them. So this is where we spend most of our time when we used to come up here. I call this my traffic signal. I'll try to check Wiesner. And those are mainly Mark Peiser's up there. And that's my Spanish artist.
Or is Esteban?
Yes, it is. Who's been so helpful? Thank you. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, boy. Yeah, I'm impressed. Yeah. This used to have a television set here. And of course, when we got that one, it freed up a space to keep a sculpture, Hank Mary Adams. But when the television set was there, I wasn't a big fan of television and its appearance. This was designed so that you could display something this way when we had people over or something or other. So this worked out very nicely, I would say. These are little sake cups, which I think are very sweet. J. Musler. This is the first piece I think we bought by Dick Marcos. Very, very early. And there was a teapot, a constructed teapot that's been in a museum, I think, in Los Angeles. I haven't seen it in years. But anyway, this was one of the first pieces we bought. And a little early, we didn't look at the Meitner. I'll have to do that later. Little Richard Meitner, who doesn't show in this country anymore. Early Lubitsky, another Wiesner. And Dominic Labino, who is known mainly for being one of the fathers of contemporary studio glass. This is, I love this. These little baby chihulies. I think they're very sweet. This is Albert Paley. Glancing. Forgot this guy's name. Anybody know this fellow's name? Okay. This was part of a big installation, apparently, because this is numbered. And it was, and we only had room for one. And I just love it. I think it's terrific. April Sargent. Little Concetta Mason. I don't know where she is these days, but it's kind of women like this because there's some opals inside. That was a drawing that Dale made for us. Another Hank Adams. Oh, that's by a Czech artist, Rybak, Jaromír Rybak. We got that actually out of the studio, I think. We made a very interesting trip to the Czech Republic while it was still under Soviet control and had some great experiences visiting artists and traveling with a government representative. It was terrific. Yeah. So a lot of these things were acquired then. So Glancy and Glancy. These are all by Ben Dre. And the story is we bought one. No, early on we bought I think 3 of them from the from Habitat Show in '81. And that summer we were in Penland. We got a call from Howard, who was doing a residency in Tennessee. And he asked if we could meet him for dinner one night. He would come in and we would meet him. And he had a proposal. He was making small scale work and he wanted to work larger, but he couldn't afford the money to go to a different factory where he could work the scale he wanted. And he asked whether or not we would be willing to give him an upfront donation, not a donation, money, and that we could have something from that first series he did, which he did 4 of them, I guess. So knowing George, I said, yeah, I'll get the pick of the litter, which we did. Anyway, so we did, and that started, and then he went to Yay High the next year. But within 5 years, he was already making this size. So there's another story. There was a fellow collector from Chicago named Michael Brilson, and who had a lovely collection. He had a lot of Bentry, a lot of Carlson, and we were visiting one night, and George was admiring his favorite piece. I think was this one. I mean, he just of all the things he had, that's the one George really liked. So a couple of months later, we get a package in the mail from Michael and said, well, here are happy holidays. We think you'd like this. You'd enjoy it more than we do. So this was a gift. So the next year when we were there for SOFA, we went back, visited the Wilsons again, walked in the door. And Michael says, don't even say what you like, just forget it. So that was the end of that. Yeah. And this is a little thing by Clifford. This is Lenin. Someone was going to Europe and he asked him to bring back anything, a little sculpture of Lenin. So he did, and then it's on an anvil, the British anvil. And we like to think that he was thinking that it was a matter of Lenin's fortunes rising and the West kind of going downhill. And so this is something that people don't ordinarily see. Clifford made this. And what's nice, there's a signature. Can you see all the signatures there on here? They're all students that were in the glass department at CCA at the time, and studio assistants and everything. And it was a gift, which was very nice. Okay, let's see if we've done this room properly. I think we have.
Yeah.
It's a small room. Hang in there, we're almost finished. I like this. We happened to be at Pilchuck visiting when Aaron Eich was there. And he made that drawing. It says, for Dorothy, which was, this is from July 81, which was lovely. My words through flowers. Aaron Eich was a very, very well-known artist from Germany. I think he passed away very recently. He must have been quite elderly, but he was a wonderful, wonderful man. Ann Wolf. These are all, believe it or not, gifts. And I want people to, that I have them all out. And oh God. Okay, somebody from who's this? To these musical instruments? Somebody help me.
René Robicek. No, those are definitely René Robicek.
Unless you're pronouncing it differently.
It's spelled R-O-U-B-I-C.
Oh, Rubicek. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, no, your pronunciation is obviously correct. Okay, I'll try to remember that. It's a very nice Klaus, very different. Big Bill Carlson. Heavy, that stays there forever. It's heavy. This is by an Israeli artist called Daphne Kefferman. On the wall. Yeah. That's all little sharp things of glass. Somebody tried to dust it and broke a lot of them. So it looks like he's molting. But anyway. I just had the name to myself.
It's David Reiki.
David Reiki.
David Reiki, yeah, exactly. Yeah. These are interesting. Let me see if I can tell which is which. This was from Dale's original basket series going back to the 70s, I think. Then 20 years later, these two, I guess, 20 years later, he did another series. These are from that one. And then a few years ago, another 20 years, he did a new basket, and this is a newer one. So kind of have him covered, at least for his baskets. These are thick ones, no? Dale keeps reinventing himself, and I wish I had more room to keep up with him, which I don't. Remember to keep up with anybody. This is another Donna Zemechnikova. It's very interesting. It's layered, and you could see different eyes on each layer of glass, and different mouths. And her work is very fascinating. She was an architect and stage designer at one time. Her stuff is very dramatic. It was dramatic. This is really interesting. For those of you who might know the ceramic world, these are made by Betty Woodman, who was one of the leading ceramists, well, actually, I suppose internationally. And you would recognize her shapes very easily because she did all these fanciful spouts and handles and everything. Anyway, she had wanted to see what it was like to work in glass. So she had a chance to go to a factory in Marseille, France, for a couple of summers and made some work there. And she showed she made 3 triptychs, one of which is at the Met, one's at Corning. And then she made several diptychs and some individual pieces. But they are so recognizable. We have 3 ceramic ones, and we had an exhibition once where they were placed on shelves right next to each other. It was fascinating. And they had the same kind of fanciful handles. It was interesting to see the glass versions next to the ceramic ones. This is a fun piece. I don't know if you can zero in. Mm-hmm. See it come alive. No, you have to see it from that way. Oh, no, here, no, here's fine. No, here, you're right. Okay, of course, we all know Marioni. I love the scale of these. They're just very delicious. This is the first one of his we bought. We were in London, probably in the 80s. We stumbled on a gallery. We didn't know anything about it, but it appealed to us. I mean, he wasn't even shown in this country yet. A few years later, they did bring him in, featured in a gallery. He got very popular. So some years later, it's called A Loud Conversation. So several years later, we saw this, maybe at Sofa, I'm not quite sure where, and it has a funny name, but we decided he needed someone to talk to, so that's why they're collaborating there. He finally has someone to converse with. This we commissioned Jay Musler. When he was working small, he was making the cityscapes, but he wanted to do something else. And so George was saying, what is it you'd like to do? What's in your mind? Jay said, well, I have something in my mind, but I can't afford to go do it. So we commissioned him to make this. It's really a mask. You can see the eyes here. And there's some wonderful elements inside. And that's when he started to work with these, like using this kind of material to make a lot of sculptures, as wall sculptures and other. So that was, I think that was important for Jay, and we certainly enjoy having him. One of the, I think most of you can identify. One of the things that we've enjoyed most about collecting is getting to know the artists, and some of whom have become personal friends, and getting to know collectors. I've often said, it sounds like a cliche, that the best part about collecting over the years have been the friends we've made, people we've met, I mean, whether it's collectors or museum, curators, whatever, gallerists, and some of the trips and adventures we've had. And it really changed our lives for the better once we started collecting. And, we've just been very, very, very lucky to be able to live with this, but we're glad to see all of it going to a museum so that other people can enjoy it too. David Hutchinson. This is an early one. He considered it just as important, the shadow effect. As well as the piece itself. I think we're running out of work. I think we're finished.
I think we covered it. Yeah.
Okay.
I know we probably have some questions in the chat, so we can
Let's
go
go
to
sit
the
down.
other room
Let's go
and sit
sit down.
down. Yeah.
That's the suggestion. Okay, let's sit down. Okay. Oh, that feels good.
Okay. All right, let's see what we have here. A lot of compliments.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Stunning pieces. Diane Phillips said, my first visit to Dorothy's apartment, I was with a group from TMA. I came home and told my husband, so Toledo Museum of Art, I came home and told my husband we needed to be glass collectors. She inspired us to begin this journey.
I have to say that several people have accused us of being their most expensive friends, started to collect after seeing the collection.
Let's see. Really just a lot of wonderful comments. I think one thing that I just wanted to point out that I felt was so important is what you were talking about regarding working with the artists to really help them evolve their work. You know, I think that sometimes when collectors are used to purchasing work through the galleries, which is, of course, a wonderful way to support and keep the whole glass ecosystem going. At the same time, it's really important to also just be able to meet the artists and to inspire the artists. And we saw several instances in your collection where with Howard Ben-Trey and Jay Musler, you were able to provide some support to really get them to the next level. And I just think that that is so important. Do you have anything else that you would like to share with artists that you have felt particularly close with?
Well, I wanted to comment on something you just said. We believe very strongly in the gallery system. We have this analogy that art is like a three-legged stool. You have the artist, the collector, and the gallery. And if one of the elements is removed, the whole thing collapses. So that even when we visited artists in their studios and found something we wanted there, we always insisted that they let us book it through the gallery, which is just something we did.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really important point because as we all know, when we look at university programs, one of the first things that we unfortunately see cut is the arts and in particular glass. So when we see collections like yours, certainly we're impressed by the breadth of the collection and the caliber of the work, but there's also that trickle down effect that someone that collects the amount of work that you do is really doing so much to serve and help keep the glass community running and going from decade to decade. And so I think a lot of times it's, easy to miss that trickle down effect, but every part feeds another part. To really.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that from the very beginning, we intended to make this a public collection in terms of making it accessible to anybody who was interested in seeing it. And of course, ultimately, we knew from the beginning that we wanted to build a museum quality collection that would ultimately end up in a museum. And I would say that over 40 years, I can't even begin to tell you how many groups we've had come through, not only locally many times, but from around the country, even from Europe, individuals, groups. I would say that probably, I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people have been here over the years. Yeah. And we love it. We love sharing. And I have been told that some people, and for most people, it was a revelation. They never knew about contemporary glass. And so whether they ended up just being appreciators or collectors, I think it makes a difference when you see things. So we felt good about that. And it cost them some money. It's tough.
Someone would like to know if there was a moment where it really spurred you to get started collecting. What?
Yes, I'll show you exactly what I know exactly when and where. Hold on. No,
Stay there. Okay.
I'll keep this handy. Oh, if I can find it.
It's okay. I'm just giving them another glimpse of the pieces on the wall here.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. I'll tell you exactly where and when. I had a friend who was clued into the craft world much before I was, just in general. And we were having dinner at her house in 1980. She had a catalog of the Corny New Glass Show from 1979 that traveled around the country, as you know. And we looked at the photographs. Oh, this was preceded a couple of years before. In the late 70s, George and I were kind of taking stock of our lives, realizing we weren't spending a lot of leisure time together. He was still working. He was involved in a lot of organizational work, boards and things, playing golf. And I was doing everything the same, except I didn't play golf, but I was going to museums and galleries and so forth. But we were spending just a lot of daytime together. And so we wanted to find something to do where neither one of us knew anything about it, that we could find something that we could learn together and experience it. It was just a vague desire. And a couple of years went by, and then we saw this catalog of these gorgeous, gorgeous pieces just on paper. And George said, "This is absolutely incredible. Maybe we could start collecting glass." Well, collecting glass. I mean, how do you, we had no art. We had some art maybe from a trip or from a auction, benefit auction, but we weren't acquisitive. Believe it or not, we were not acquisitive people. I was still living with the same tchotchkes around the house that I got as wedding gifts from my parents. And but meantime, this is just from having seen photographs. So coincidentally, about 6 weeks later, the Open Museum brought in a traveling show from a Wisconsin museum that was going around the country. We were actually able to see glass objects by many of the same artists. And obviously, since it was the same time frame as the catalog, a lot of work from the same series. And so that's determined it. Then what do you do? So how do you collect? Where do you collect? Where do you see things? I mean, we didn't even know if there were any galleries in San Francisco. And finally, in May, we bought our first few pieces from a gallery that existed at the time, Meyer, Breyer, and Weiss. And we backed into it just as, and it did change our life. George stopped playing golf. We spent our Saturdays in the city going to museums and galleries, and bought this place in anyway. So that's how we got started.
Great. I'd also like to mention that the curation and display of your work is really exquisite, and that's so important in really showcasing the work for what it is. Was there someone that helped you with
Absolutely. There was a fabulous designer, Ted Cohn, who just passed away, unfortunately. He was the designer, installation designer for the Oakland Museum, and for many, many years. And they had an exhibit from our collection in I guess, in 89. That was one of the first museums that showed things from our collection. And he stayed long enough so he could design the thing and the exhibition. And incidentally, we've had several museum exhibitions besides Toledo and St. Louis Museum and the Renwick, and anyway, Newport, Southern California. But so he went into freelance, and he continued to. He did installations for galleries and for collectors. In fact, the Museum of Craft and Design in San Francisco had an exhibition several months ago of work from some of the local collections that he had designed. So he designed all the display and placed. He put the platform, the shelves, but the work has. I don't do anything creative, but one of the things that I can do besides fix flowers arrangements, we've been very, very careful about display and hope it succeeded. Where we don't want, even though there are lots of things here, we've tried to harmonize the shapes or colors or something, so that it's just not a blob of a lot of stuff and crowded in. I hope we've succeeded. But it's been very important to us. And so George and I, after the first go round, have done it.
Do you have any advice for new collectors that want to get started and are looking to understand where to start, how to start?
Well, fortunately, there are so many books and catalogs you can refer to now. Then, in 1980, the only books we could find were kind of textbooks that formulas and stuff. We had the catalog of the New Glass, but I would read a lot. And I wouldn't be quick to buy. I would do my homework first and read, whether it's a catalog or there's just shelves and shelves of books you can refer to. You talk to people. Try to get acquainted with the gallerists and listen to them. We were very lucky. Doug Heller was very helpful. There were times we would be there and wanted to buy something. He said, no, you're not, she's not ready for you yet. She couldn't be doing some more interesting, just hold off. Mm-hmm. And we really respected that. So if he ever called and said, there's something here, you really have to look at it, we would take him very seriously. But so build up relationships with gallerists and talk to other collectors, see as much as you can, whether it's other collectors or museums. Fortunately, a lot of museums, I think we were probably one of the first to have our work shown actually in an art museum. There are a lot of museums now that do have wonderful art collections that have been given to them or they're buying on their own. So just learn as much as you can.
I think another special part of your collection is that you do have an eye for emerging artists. And as we saw with Oben's work, purchasing it when he was still a student, I believe, to the pieces. And I'm sure that was not only a pivotal point for him, but, it's nice to see that breadth in your collection where you are giving emerging artists a chance and incorporating it with these higher caliber works.
Of course, don't forget a lot of these pieces, I wouldn't say they're necessarily emerging artists, but a lot of them were just starting their careers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any more questions? Let me give a quick check in the chat. A lot of very generous comments that I will share with you later, Dorothy, but it looks like that is it for us. So,
well, I want to thank everybody for their interest. And happy collecting, happy enjoying, and just do what you do. Do whatever gives you pleasure.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you too to Dorothy. As I touched on during our discussion, it's being here today is not just about showing her collection, but showing who she is as a person, the way she's inspired the art community, the way she's really been so pivotal in keeping it going. And especially here in the Bay Area where we're located, it's just been incredibly inspiring to see.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. So if people would like to unmute themselves, they can say hello or thank you.